The spectrum of male-led relationships. Women from all walks of life find a home within Red Pill Women principles. On any given day, you will find harmonious and productive discussions between highly religious, traditional conservative women, individuals practicing hardcore bondage, discipline, sadomasochism, submissiveness, and everyone in between. What we all share is not a single lifestyle, a rigid set of values, or an identical worldview, but rather a unified way of relating to men. At the core of this community is a fundamental question: what does a male-led dynamic look like in your relationship? And how do submission and deference appear in your day-to-day life? A shift in perception. I used to believe that submission was not a significant factor in my own relationship. I viewed myself as generally respectful but not outright submissive. However, a recent conversation with my fiancé completely shifted my perspective. When I asked if he would describe me as submissive, he immediately said yes, explaining, "Because I take the lead. And you normally agree." When I countered with a recent example where I had pushed back against dining out to save money, he laughed and said, "That happened one time. It had actually happened the previous night." I chose not to argue the point because I simply wanted to understand his mindset. It made me realize that a fascinating bit of psychological framing is at play. Perhaps he perceives me as far more submissive than I am. Or perhaps I perceive myself as far more dominant than I actually am. Ultimately, he noted that he has his own vision and goals, and I happily come along for the ride, a reality I completely agree with. Practicing deference day to day. For me, implementing these principles practically means embracing the concept of shut the fuck up and relinquishing control. My natural tendency is to tell people how to do things, or to simply do them myself if I think someone else will fall short. Through learning from this community, I have realized these traits are rarely attractive or respectful, no matter how helpful I think I am being. Today, my practice looks like toning down my inner control freak and choosing peace. Timing critiques. If I see an area where he could improve, I no longer blurt it out immediately. I wait for the right moment when the advice will actually be helpful. Choosing battles. When debating abstract topics like politics, I do not push to win the argument. I want to save my influence for when it truly matters. If I disagree with him constantly, my opinion will lose its weight. Stating opinions once. If something impacts me negatively, I express my view clearly exactly once, and then I drop the matter until he brings it up again. The big picture. I readily admit that I am not suited for big picture, long-term planning. I need a partner with a clear vision for the future, and I am genuinely happy to tag along and support that vision.